Rain tapped against my apartment windows, a sound that would become my strange comfort in the weeks ahead as my mother's words crashed through the phone speaker. Camille wants everything photo, perfect, and the dress might not suit your current figure. Maybe look into that diet article I sent you? I gripped the framed photo on my desk, the one of Camille and me at 16 and 13, our faces pressed together at my first photography exhibition. Back then, my sister's protective arm around my shoulders felt genuine rather than performative. It's just that Camille needs everything perfect for her day, my mother continued, her voice carrying that familiar blend of apology and judgment. You understand, don't you? I traced my sister's teenage smile in the photograph. The rain intensified, drumming against the glass like applause for my mother's performance. I understand completely, I said, my voice steadier than expected. Oh, wonderful. The relief in her tone was painful. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. After ending the call, I sat in the growing darkness of my Portland apartment, letting the rain's rhythm wash over me. My phone buzzed again, Dad this time, right on cue. Hey, kiddo, your mother mentioned. He cleared his throat. Look, we found a compromise. The lodge is doing a live stream for relatives who can't make it. You could watch from home. Less pressure that way. Less pressure. As if pressure wasn't Camille's natural habitat. My sister, the Ivy League attorney, who collected achievements like some people collected postcards. Every family gathering became a showcase of her latest victory, making partner at 32, buying the perfect brownstone, landing the perfect fiancé from the perfect family. Meanwhile, I taught photography classes and did freelance work, creative pursuits that my family categorized somewhere between hobby and disappointment. My phone chimed with a text from Isabel, Camille's maid of honor and our childhood neighbor. Just heard, this is BS. But you know how C gets about appearances? I'll keep you in the loop, Kija. Isabel's loyalty was admirable but divided. She'd been straddling the line between Camille's world and mine since we were kids, never quite choosing sides. Another message popped up, this one from my cousin Reed. Don't worry, 'cause I'll be your eyes and ears. Something feels off about this whole thing anyway. I set the phone face down, silencing the cascade of notifications. My mother called back, probably sensing my silence as rebellion rather than resignation. Ellery, I just wanted to make sure we're all clear about the arrangement. Her voice carried forced brightness. This really is for the best. The Holloways are very particular about appearances, and with the society photographer they've hired. Everything's clear, Mom. I watched raindrops race down my window, creating shifting patterns in the gathering dusk. I'll watch the live stream. Oh, good. She paused. You know we all want what's best for you. What's best for me? The phrase echoed like a punchline to a joke I'd stopped finding funny years ago. I ended the call and stood at my window, watching Portland's evening traffic blur through the rain-streaked glass. 2 weeks until the Montana Lodge wedding. 2 weeks to decide whether to watch my sister marry into a family that made mine look functional. 2 weeks to perfect my I'm fine smile for the inevitable FaceTime calls and social media posts. The framed photo caught my eye again. Teenage Camille and Ellery, before law school and family expectations had carved a gulf between us. Before, what's best for you became code for what's least embarrassing for us. I had no idea then that being uninvited to my sister's wedding would be the greatest gift my family ever gave me. The rain continued its steady percussion against my windows as night settled over Portland. I moved through my apartment, mechanically preparing tea, checking work emails, responding to concerned texts from friends. A message from Camille arrived just before midnight. Mom told me about your decision. Thanks for understanding. I'll make sure you get good screenshots from the photographer. T. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, composing and deleting responses. In the end, I simply wrote, "Congratulations. I hope it's everything you want it to be." The rain intensified, drawing my attention back to the window. Through the glass, city lights blurred like wayward stars, each one a distant point of clarity I hadn't yet reached. My reflection stared back at me, Superimposed over Portland's night skippy, a woman holding herself carefully still, as if any movement might shatter something already broken. In the quiet of my apartment, surrounded by the photography books and vintage cameras that mapped my path away from family expectations, I finally allowed myself to acknowledge what I'd known since that first call. This exclusion wasn't about my figure, or the dress, or even the perfect photos. It was about maintaining the carefully curated image of the James family, now merging with the even more particular Holloways. It was about the story they wanted to tell about themselves, one that had no room for a daughter who chose creativity over conformity. My phone buzzed with another text from Reed. "Hey, you still up? Been hearing some interesting chatter about Derek's mom. Might want to keep your calendar clear for wedding day. Trust me." I reached for the framed photo again, studying our younger selves. Camille's arm around my shoulders, my unguarded smile, the way we leaned into each other before we learned to hold ourselves apart. Some stories, I whispered to our teenage reflections, are better witnessed from a distance. The rain whispered back, a steady rhythm that would become my companion through the strange days ahead. I set the photo carefully on my desk, positioning it to face the spot where I'd eventually set up my laptop for the live stream. 2 weeks. 14 days to transform exclusion into perspective. To learn the difference between witnessing and participating. To discover that sometimes the clearest view comes from the outside looking in. The rain kept falling, washing Portland's streets clean, while I sat in my quiet apartment and began to plan how I would watch my sister's perfect day implode from 900 miles away. 12 hours after that call, I sat in my darkened apartment, the familiar sound of Portland rain tapping against my windows. The city lights filtered through the droplets, casting watery shadows across my living room floor. I hadn't bothered turning on any lamps. The darkness felt appropriate. My phone lay silent on the coffee table, though I'd turned the ringer to maximum volume. Some part of me still hoped for my mother to call back, to say she'd reconsidered, to acknowledge the cruelty of excluding her own daughter from her sister's wedding. But I knew better. The Jameses didn't reconsider, they simply moved forward, expecting everyone to fall in line with their decisions. The memories surfaced like old photographs, each one perfectly preserved despite my attempts to blur their edges. Christmas dinner 3 years ago. Camille announcing her law school graduation with honors, her voice carrying across our parents' formal dining room. "Summa cum laude," she'd said, as if the Latin somehow made it more impressive. Mom and Dad had exchanged knowing looks before presenting her with our grandmother's Perlsa family heirloom I'd always assumed would be shared between us. Instead, I'd received a diet book with a post-it note suggesting, "Professional headshots might help your business when you look your best." My sister had at least had the grace to look uncomfortable, but she hadn't spoken up. Another memory, my first solo photography exhibit opening just last year. I'd sent the invitation months in advance, confirmed twice. They arrived 45 minutes late, barely glanced at my work, and left after 20 minutes because Derek's family is hosting a dinner we simply can't miss. I'd watched them hurry out, my mother's heels clicking against the gallery floor, leaving me to explain their absence to my friends and colleagues. I stood and walked to the bathroom, flipping on the harsh fluorescent light. My reflection stared back at me, neither particularly thin nor fat, just average, normal, human. Is this really where 29 years had led? A woman who still sought approval from people who had never truly seen her? I finally called Naomi. "I'm actually relieved they don't want me there," I said, surprising myself with the truth of it. "Is that horrible?" "No, honey." Naomi's voice carried the warmth my mother's always lacked. "Maybe this is your chance to see them clearly from a safe distance. You won't have to squeeze into some uncomfortable dress they picked out, or explain to judgmental aunts why you're still single, or pretend to be someone you're not." I let her words sink in, feeling something loosen in my chest. "A safe distance," I repeated softly. "Exactly. You can watch without being watched. No performance required." After hanging up, I opened my laptop and started browsing. Within an hour, I'd ordered copper wire string lights, a bottle of expensive champagne I'd never have bought for myself, and gourmet appetizers that would make Patricia Caldwell's catering look pedestrian. I even splurged on proper champagne Flutesno plastic cups for this viewing party of one. My credit card winced, but something about spending money on myself, rather than another wedding gift, felt rebellious, satisfying. I'd already contributed to their registry. Of course, a ridiculously expensive coffee maker Camille would probably never use. But this? This was for me. 3 days later, I cleared a corner of my living room, rearranging furniture to create the perfect viewing nook. The internet connection was strongest here, and the natural light from the windows would keep me from feeling like I was hiding in a cave. 10 days until I'd sit alone watching my sister's perfect day unfold in days to prepare myself for what that would feel like. The rain had softened to a gentle patter, almost soothing now. I touched the screen where I'd bookmarked the wedding livestream link, imagining how it would feel to watch my family celebrate without me. But instead of the familiar hurt, I felt something different stirring, something that felt almost like freedom. By setting up my own celebration, I was choosing to witness, rather than participate in an act of self-protection, rather than spite. Another pair of the string lights would arrive tomorrow. I'd create my own space, my own ritual, my own way of being present while maintaining the distance I suddenly realized I'd always needed. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, Camille and me at 16 and 13, arms around each other, genuine smiles before we learned to pose for camera perfection. We looked happy then, before expectations and appearances became the family currency, before good enough became a moving target I could never quite hit. The rain picked up again, drumming against the windows with renewed intensity. I closed my laptop and moved to the couch, wrapping myself in the throw blanket I'd bought from a local artisan. Another purchase my mother would have deemed unnecessarily bohemian. The fabric was soft against my skin, its weight comforting. 10 days. The timeline hung in my mind like a countdown clock. 10 days to transform this space into something that felt like celebration rather than consolation. 10 days to convince myself that watching from afar was a choice rather than a punishment. I pulled out my phone one last time, opening the Notes app where I'd started listing the advantages of remote viewing. No uncomfortable dress. No explaining my life choices. No pretending to be someone else. No forced small talk with Camille's judgmental law school friends. No watching mom gauge every bite I take at the reception. The list grew longer as I typed, each item a small liberation. Maybe Naomi was right. Maybe distance wasn't a punishment, but a gift, a chance to see clearly what I'd been too close to notice before. I fell asleep on the couch that night, the rain, my lullaby, dreaming of string lights and champagne and the strange freedom of watching without being watched. For the first time since my mother's call, I didn't feel like I was being excluded from something perfect. Instead, I felt like I was being protected from something that had never been quite right to begin with. The last thought before sleep took me was simple. Sometimes the best view of a storm is from the safety of shelter, watching the lightning illuminate truth in brief, brilliant flashes. 7 days before the wedding, I fully transformed my living room corner into what I'm privately calling my viewing sanctuary. The string lights cast a soft, protective glow as I weave them through potted plants and around my reading chair. It feels like creating a cocoon, something both beautiful and defensive. "You're actually decorating for this?" Naomi asks through the phone as I adjust the lights. That's either incredibly healthy or deeply concerning. I haven't decided which. If I have to watch my sister's wedding implode from 900 miles away, I'm at least going to be comfortable doing it. I step back, assessing the space. The lights reflect off my collection of vintage cameras, creating abstract patterns on the wall. Besides, it beats crying into a pint of ice cream in the dark. Fair point. She pauses. How are you really doing with all this? I consider lying, but Naomi has known me since college. She'd see through any attempt at bravado. I bought a dress today, I say instead. For the viewing party of one? It's navy, makes me feel beautiful. I smooth the fabric hanging in my closet. Not that anyone will see it except my laptop camera. You bought a dress to watch a live stream alone in your apartment? I bought a dress for me, I correct her. Not for family photos or my mother's approval or Camille's perfect wedding aesthetic. Just for me. The silence on the other end feels weighted with understanding. Finally, Naomi says, "That might be the healthiest thing I've ever heard you say about your family." I spend the next few hours assembling what I've dubbed my wedding survival kit: tissues, emergency chocolate, and a notebook for what I suspect will be necessary documentation. The mute button on my laptop has been tested repeatedly, a crucial feature for when the inevitable commentary starts about my absence. 4 days until the livestream link goes active. 4 days to fortify my emotional defenses. My phone buzzes with a text from Reed. "Can I call?" I've barely typed yes when it rings. "I'm your inside man," he announces without preamble. "And something's definitely up with Derek." I sink into my viewing chair, pulling my knees to my chest. "What do you mean?" Isabel seems stressed, more than normal pre-wedding stuff. Reed's voice drops slightly, and I overheard Constance Holloway talking about some slideshow she's prepared. Camille knows nothing about it. That seems ominous. Right? And Derek's been weird, jumpy, keeps checking his phone when Camille isn't looking. Reed pauses. "Listen, I'll text you updates throughout the day. You might be better off watching from Portland after all." After we hang up, I stare at the framed photo of Camille and me as teenagers. We're laughing at something long forgotten. Her arm around my shoulders, my camera hanging around my neck. For a moment, I consider putting it away, a clean break from the past, but instead, I position it facing the screen where I'll watch her wedding unfold. Even in absentia, I'm still the clumsiest bridesmaid. I mutter as I knock over the photo while setting up my tripod. I want to document this experience, though I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe to prove I was here, in my own way. Maybe to capture whatever truth emerges from this carefully orchestrated event. The next 2 days pass in a blur of preparation. I test the livestream connection obsessively, terrified of technical difficulties at crucial moments. I rehearse responses for the inevitable post-wedding calls. Yes, everything looked beautiful. No, I completely understand why watching remotely made more sense. Of course, I'm not upset. My phone chimes with another text from Reed. "Rehearsal dinner tonight. We'll keep you posted." I curl up in my viewing chair, studying the space I've created. The string lights cast their gentle glow, transforming my ordinary apartment corner into something almost magical. Fresh flowers, a luxury I rarely indulge, infill the air with their subtle fragrance. It's beautiful, but not in the calculated way my mother would arrange things. It's beautiful in its authenticity, in its purpose as a space for honest observation. My hands smooth the navy dress hanging nearby. The fabric is soft, expensive, a splurge I justified as an investment in my own worth. It's not the bridesmaid dress I was originally meant to wear, but somehow that makes it more precious. This dress represents a choice rather than an obligation. The survival kit sits ready. Tissues for inevitable tears, whether of sadness or vindication remains to be seen, chocolate for emotional emergencies, and a journal to record whatever unfolds. The mute button has been tested repeatedly. I know I'll need it when the whispers start about my conspicuous absence. I adjust the framed photo one final time, positioning it where both Camille and I can witness whatever truth emerges from this elaborately planned day. The teenage version of us smiles out from behind the glass, unaware of the distance years and choices would create between us. My phone buzzes again, Reed sending updates from the rehearsal dinner. I've positioned him strategically as my eyes and ears, though I suspect he has his own reasons for wanting to document this event. His texts paint a picture of mounting tension. Isabel's stressed pacing, Derek's distracted demeanor, Constance Holloway's satisfied smirks. "They just did a tech check for tomorrow," Reed texts. Constance insisted on adding something to the reception program. "Wedding planner looks ready to quit." I respond with a simple question mark, but Reed doesn't elaborate. Instead, he sends, "You might want to record the live stream, just in case." That "just in case" settles in my stomach like a stone. I check my recording software one more time, adjust the tripod angle, and straighten the flowers flanking my laptop. Everything is ready for tomorrow's performance because that's what weddings are, aren't they? Carefully choreographed performances of perfection. Except this one seems to have some unscheduled programming. I curl up in my viewing chair, letting the soft glow of the string lights wash over me. From this distance, I can see things clearly in a way I never could from within the chaos. My sister's wedding is less than 24 hours away, and I'm beginning to suspect that my uninvited status might be the greatest gift my family has ever given me. The framed photo catches the light, highlighting our younger selves' carefree smiles. "I'll be watching, Cam," I whisper to her teenage image. "I promise I'll see everything they don't want us to notice." A final text from Reed buzzes through. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." I settle deeper into my chair, surrounded by the cocoon I've created for myself. 3 hours until midnight. 15 hours until the livestream begins. A lifetime of family dynamics about to unravel in high definition. The rain starts again, pattering against my windows with its now familiar comfort. In this moment, wrapped in soft light and armed with chocolate and tissues, I feel strangely powerful. They may have excluded me from the wedding party, but they've given me something far more valuable: perspective. Tomorrow, I'll put on my beautiful navy dress, sit in this carefully crafted space, and watch my sister's perfect day implode from a safe distance. And maybe, just maybe, that distance will finally bridge the gap between us. The wedding day arrived with a ping from my laptop. The live stream had gone live 3 hours early. I adjusted my position on the couch, drawing my legs beneath me as the screen filled with movement. The familiar stone walls of the Mountain View Lodge appeared, decorated with cascading white flowers and twinkling lights. Perfect, tasteful, exactly what I'd expected from my sister. My phone buzzed. "Reed, backstage is tense. You wouldn't believe what's happening." I leaned closer to the screen, grateful for the technical crew's tendency to leave cameras running during setup. Camille appeared in frame, resplendent in her designer gown, but her movements were sharp, agitated. She gestured at something off-screen, her voice carrying that precise tone I recognized from childhood, the one that meant someone had deviated from her carefully laid plans. "I specifically said lavender water in all the preparation rooms," she snapped at Isabel, who looked particularly elegant in her maid of honor dress. "Mother's migraine will flare up if she smells roses. How difficult is that to understand?" Isabel touched Camille's arm, murmuring something too low for the microphone to catch. My sister's shoulders remained rigid, but she allowed Isabel to guide her toward a chair. I sipped my champagne, watching Isabel step away to check her phone for what must have been the 10th time in as many minutes. She whispered urgently into it, glancing over her shoulder to ensure Camille wasn't watching. The camera caught her expression-worry lines creasing her normally smooth forehead. The live stream feed switched to another angle, catching Derek and his groomsmen in what was clearly meant to be a private moment. My future brother-in-law knocked back another shot of something amber-colored, his best man steadying him with a concerned look. Constance Holloway hovered nearby, her designer suit immaculate, her smile fixed as she watched her son drain the glass. "Your mother specifically requested non-alcoholic toasts until after the ceremony," the wedding planner's voice carried across the feed. Derek waved her off, reaching for the bottle again. The tinny sound of the 12-piece jazz band warming up filtered through my speakers, a discordant counterpoint to the tension unfolding on screen. I picked up my phone. What exactly is happening back there?" "Reed, something big is happening backstage. Isabel keeps disappearing with her phone. Derek's halfway to wasted. Constance is being Constance." I watched the split-screen effect of my comfortable viewing setup versus the mounting chaos in Montana. While I sat surrounded by string lights and carefully arranged hors d'oeuvres, the wedding party scattered like startled birds every time Camille entered a room. My sister had always been particular about details, but this seemed different. Her usual precision had taken on a brittle edge. 45 minutes until the ceremony," the wedding planner announced, her clipboard clutched like a shield. "And I want to be very clear that if anyone else changes the timeline without consulting me, I am walking out." My fingers found the framed photo on the side table, Camille and me at 16 and 13, before expectations and appearances became our family's religion. "Not long ago, I would have been in the thick of that chaos," I murmured to our younger selves, trying to fix everything. I almost closed the laptop then, almost convinced myself that watching this unfold was an act of masochism rather than necessity. But something held me there, the same instinct that made me grab my camera when storm clouds gathered on the horizon. Isabel appeared suddenly in frame, close to one of the cameras. Her eyes found the lens and she mouthed what looked like, "Wish you were here," before hurrying away. My phone buzzed again. Read. Isabel found something. She's debating whether to tell Camille before or after. I sat back, struck by the strange clarity that distance provided. From here, I could see all the moving pieces: Isabel's nervous energy, Derek's concerning behavior, Constance's calculating presence. Things that might have been lost in the emotional undertow had I been there in person. If you've ever watched a disaster unfold in slow motion, knowing you're powerless to stop it, you understand exactly how I felt in that moment. The wedding party assembled in their designated places, a choreographed dance of denial. Guests filed into their seats as the jazz band transitioned to classical arrangements. My phone lit up with Reed's final warning. Constance insisted on adding a surprise tribute video to the reception program. The wedding planner just told me it wasn't approved by Camille. I stared at the message, memory flashing to all the times Constance had orchestrated surprises at family events, each one carefully designed to assert her control. The woman wielded sentiment like a weapon, and she never did anything without purpose. The opening notes of the processional began to play. On screen, Camille took our father's arm, her smile camera ready but her eyes carrying something that looked almost like fear. The guests rose, turning toward the entrance, unaware they were about to witness something very different from the perfect wedding they'd expected. I touched the framed photo one last time and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Cam. I don't think this is going to end the way you planned." The ceremony began 6 hours into my livestream vigil, my laptop screen casting a blue glow across my makeshift viewing space. I adjusted the string lights, creating the illusion of being present while maintaining the safety of distance. The Montana Lodge's rustic wooden beams filled my screen as guests settled into their seats, their whispers carried through tinny speakers. My sister appeared at the back of the aisle, radiant in vintage lace. But even through the pixelated feed, I could see the strain beneath her practiced smile. Camille had perfected that expression over years of family photos, the one that said everything was fine, just fine, even when it wasn't. The string quartet began the processional. I sipped champagne, noting how Derek swayed slightly at the altar. His mother Constance beamed from the front row, her satisfaction almost palpable even through my screen. The woman had the look of someone who'd orchestrated a perfect plan, though I couldn't yet guess what it was. "Derek James Holloway," Camille began her vows, her voice cracking on his middle name. The sound hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd heard that catch in her voice before, at our grandmother's funeral, when she was trying desperately to maintain composure. My sister didn't crack under pressure. Not like this. My phone buzzed with a text from Reed. "Something's wrong. Isabel keeps checking her phone." I shifted closer to the screen, watching Isabel fidget with something in her clutch while maintaining her maid of honor smile. The camera panned across the guests, as Derek stumbled through his own vows, his words slightly slurred. His "I do" came out more like a question than a declaration. The reception began with its carefully choreographed precision, but beneath the surface, cracks were spreading. Constance huddled with the DJ near his equipment, gesturing emphatically at his laptop. The woman's persistence reminded me of a wasp repeatedly striking a window, determined to break through. My phone lit up again. Reed. "DJ looks scared. Constance won't leave him alone." I watched Isabel slip an envelope to Camille near the cake table, their heads bent close together. My sister's fingers trembled slightly as she tucked it into her bouquet wrap. Derek, meanwhile, seemed to be everywhere except near his new wife, his attention fixed on his phone screen as he circled the perimeter of the dance floor. 20 minutes until the first dance, the wedding planner announced, her voice carrying through the live stream. 20 minutes before everything would change, though I didn't know it then. I reached for the framed photo of Camille and me as teenagers, taken the summer before she left for college. We were laughing at something now forgotten, our faces turned toward each other like conspirators sharing a secret. I positioned it closer to my laptop screen, as if I could somehow bridge the gap between past and present. "What's happening, Cam?" I whispered to her image, younger and unburdened. The DJ's voice cut through my reflection. "Ladies and gentlemen, the mother of the groom has prepared a special surprise for the happy couple." My stomach clenched as the lights dimmed. A projection screen descended from the lodge's rafters, its white surface gleaming in the spotlight. Camille's confusion played clearly across her features. This wasn't part of the meticulously organized timeline she'd shared with me last week. My sister lived by her timelines, each moment carefully controlled. The slideshow began innocently enough. Baby Derek in the bathtub, young Derek at Little League, teenage Derek with his first car, a BMW, naturally. The images marched forward through college graduation, law school, family vacations. Then came the shift. A photo of Derek at a ski resort, his arm around a striking woman with auburn hair. Another image. The same woman laughing at what appeared to be an office Christmas party, wearing Derek's jacket. My champagne glass slipped from my fingers, splashing across my coffee table as the next photo appeared. Derek and the woman, Lana, according to Reed's frantic text, kissing beneath mistletoe. The timestamp showed 3 months ago. "Oh God," I breathed, grabbing paper towels while keeping my eyes locked on the screen. The spilled champagne seemed trivial compared to what was unfolding before me. Each new image landed like a body blow, and I wasn't even the target. Camille stood frozen in the center of the reception hall, her wedding dress gleaming under harsh projector light. The camera caught every micro-expression as realization dawned. The slight parting of her lips, the color draining from her face, the way her fingers clenched around her bouquet until petals began to fall. Through my speakers came the distinct sound of glass shattering. Someone had dropped their drink. The noise seemed to break whatever spell had held the room motionless. Guests began to murmur, then whisper, then speak in normal voices that carried undercurrents of shock and scandal. I grabbed my phone to text Reed, but stopped short as the final image filled the screen. The auburn-haired woman holding a handwritten sign with a message that turned my blood to ice. "Still waiting. Call me when you're ready for the real thing." The projection screen went dark, but the damage was done. In the resulting silence, I could hear my own heartbeat through the laptop speakers. Or maybe it was Camille's. Our rhythms synced across 900 miles of separation. I touched the framed photo again, wishing I could reach through the screen and pull my sister away from what was coming next. My fingers flew across my phone. "Reed, what's happening?" His response came quickly. "Constance is smiling. She planned this. Isabel looks ready to commit murder. Stand by." The livestream camera panned across the reception hall, capturing the tableau in excruciating detail. Derek, pale and swaying slightly, his mother's hand resting possessively on his arm. Constance, her triumph barely concealed behind a mask of maternal concern. Isabel, half rising from her seat with fury in her eyes. And at the center of it all, my sister, still standing, still breathing, still processing the moment her perfect wedding imploded. I wanted to look away. I wanted to shut my laptop and pretend none of this was happening. But I kept watching, because that's what I'd promised myself when I accepted my exclusion from this wedding. I would witness. I would remember. I would be the one person who saw it all clearly, without the fog of champagne or social pretense or family obligation. The camera zoomed in on Camille's face just as she turned toward it. For a moment, our eyes seemed to meet across the digital divide. In that frozen frame, I saw something shift in my sister's expression, a crack in the perfect facade she'd maintained for so long. The real wedding was about to begin. The moment the slideshow shifts from Derek's childhood photos, something in my gut clenches. The livestream video quality isn't perfect, but I can make out enough to know this isn't the usual wedding montage. My champagne glass freezes halfway to my lips as recent photos begin flashing across the screen. Derek on a ski slope, his arm around a woman who isn't my sister. Derek at what looks like a Christmas party, the same woman perched on his lap. Derek and the mystery woman, who I now realize must be Lana, kissing against a sunset backdrop, the timestamp showing this was taken just 3 months ago. The final slide hits like a physical blow. Lana holding a handwritten sign that reads, "Still waiting. Call me when you're ready for the real thing." The image lingers, taunting everyone in that reception hall and me, 900 miles away in my quiet apartment. Dead silence follows. Through my laptop speakers, I can hear the mechanical whir of the projector, a sound that seems to echo through the Montana Lodge's vaulted ceiling. The camera pans across shocked faces before settling on my sister. Camille stands frozen, her champagne glass suspended in midair like she's forgotten how to move. Her carefully applied makeup can't hide the blood draining from her face. I lean closer to my screen, willing her to run, to scream, to throw something. Instead, she remains perfectly still, as if movement might shatter whatever thin thread of composure she's clinging to. Derek's face has gone ashen, his jaw working silently as he looks between Camille and his mother. Constance Holloway stands near the laptop, controlling the slideshow, her expression a masterpiece of false concern barely masking triumph. She takes a step toward Camille, hand outstretched in what looks like comfort but reads more like victory. "Darling," Constance's voice carries clearly through the livestream. "We simply couldn't let you enter our family without knowing the truth. It's for the best, really." 10 seconds of absolute silence stretch like years. I count them in my head, watching my sister's face as realization dawns. 7 years of relationship, 3 months of wedding planning, countless family dinners and holiday gatherings, all of it disintegrating in the space of those 10 endless seconds. My hands find the framed photo of Camille and me as teenagers, clutching it to my chest like I can somehow protect that younger version of my sister from what's happening now. We're both smiling in the photo, gap-toothed and gangly, back when our biggest concern was who got to ride shotgun in Mom's minivan. I set down the frame and grab my phone, fingers trembling as I try to call Isabel. It rings once before going to voicemail. I fire off a rapid series of texts. Is she okay? What can I do? Should I book a flight? The live stream feed stutters, then freezes on Camille's devastated expression. My heart pounds as I frantically refresh the browser window. Nothing. I try a different browser. Still nothing. Reed's number is next on my speed dial. "What's happening?" I demand when he picks up. "The stream crashed." "Total chaos?" Reed whispers. "Hang on, I'm trying to get closer." His voice cuts out. I switch between browser tabs, clicking refresh over and over, cursing technology while simultaneously thanking it for letting me witness this from a safe distance. If I'd been there in person, wearing that ice blue bridesmaid dress my mother deemed suitable, I might have thrown something at Constance Holloway's perfectly coiffed head. The feed crackles back to life just in time to catch Camille's voice, steady despite everything. "You lied. About everything." Derek takes a stumbling step toward her. "Cam, baby, let me explain." "Don't," the word cracks like a whip. "Don't you dare call me that." The video freezes again, this time on Derek's face. A perfect capture of guilt meeting consequences. I grab my phone and start texting Isabel again, but my fingers pause over the keyboard. What could I possibly say? "Sorry, our perfect family wedding turned into a Jerry Springer episode." Doesn't quite cover it. My apartment feels too quiet suddenly, the string lights I'd hung for my viewing party of one, casting shadows that seemed to mock the celebration I'd planned. The champagne in my glass has gone flat. Outside, Portland rain taps against my windows, the same steady rhythm that's accompanied every major moment of my life in this city. I think about all the times Camille has called me scattered, unfocused, unwilling to commit to a real career or relationship. All those carefully worded suggestions about how I could be more like her, more polished, more professional, more perfect. Now here I sit, watching her perfect life implode through a pixelated screen while eating fancy cheese and wearing my most comfortable sweatpants. The live stream returns, the camera shakily panning across what's become a very different kind of reception. Guests stand in awkward clusters, phones raised to capture the drama. Isabel has positioned herself between Camille and the Holloways, her tiny frame somehow managing to look intimidating. The 12-piece jazz band has stopped playing, though one confused saxophone player keeps lifting his instrument like he might try to smooth things over with some Kenny G. I have the receipts. Camille's voice carries clearly now. The hotel charges, the text messages. How long were you planning to wait before telling me? After the honeymoon? After we bought a house? After kids? Another video freeze. This time I don't bother refreshing. Instead, I study the framed photo again, remembering how Camille used to defend me from middle school bullies, how she'd let me hide in her room when our parents' fights got too loud. Somewhere between then and now, we'd lost that instinct to protect each other. My phone buzzes with a text from Reed. Isabel found messages going back 2 years. Constance knew the whole time, actually encouraged it, wanted him with Lana instead. The live stream returns for a brief moment, long enough to see Camille finally move. She takes one deliberate step toward Derek, then another. The camera angle shifts slightly as someone bumps the tripod, and I catch a glimpse of Constance's face. She's smiling, satisfied, like everything is going according to plan. I want to reach through the screen and warn my sister, tell her to walk away with dignity intact. But maybe dignity is overrated. Maybe sometimes you need to let the perfect facade shatter completely before you can build something real. The feed cuts out again, and this time I know it won't return. I sit in my quiet apartment, surrounded by my viewing party decorations, and realize I'm crying. Not for the wedding. That was doomed before it began. I'm crying for my sister, for the moment she discovered that perfection is just another way to hide the truth. My phone lights up with a call from our mother. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever damage control she's planning can wait. Right now, I need to book a flight to Portland International Airport. Something tells me Camille might need a place to stay, far from the perfect life she thought she wanted. I touch the frozen image on my screen, my sister's face caught between devastation and discovery. "Hold on, Cam," I whisper. Sometimes the best view comes from a distance. The rain against my windows picks up intensity, drumming a steady rhythm that sounds almost like applause. 24 minutes after the livestream crashed for the third time, my screen flickered back to life. The elegant wedding reception had devolved into barely contained chaos. Where refined jazz music had floated over well-dressed guests just hours before, now shouts and gasps punctuated the air. My fingers gripped the edge of my laptop, knuckles white, as I absorbed the scene. Lanath, a woman from the slideshow, stood near the dessert table in a red dress that seemed designed to draw attention. Constance Holloway beamed beside her like a proud general who'd just executed a perfect battle plan. The scene felt surreal through my screen, like watching a soap opera where the production values couldn't quite match the drama. My phone buzzed with Reed's latest update. Complete disaster. Isabel has proof. Receipts, texts, everything. The livestream camera panned across the reception hall, catching fragments of confrontation. Camille's voice cut through the chaos, steady but stretched thin. "Did you know she was coming?" Derek tugged at his bow tie, his perfectly styled hair now disheveled. The camera caught his expression, not guilt exactly, but the trapped look of someone who'd finally run out of escape routes. "Cam, let's discuss this privately." "Answer the question." Camille's voice carried the precise tone she used in court, the one that made witnesses crumble. Isabel appeared at Camille's side, manila envelope in hand. My old friend's face was set with determination as she pulled out what looked like hotel receipts. The camera angle shifted, but I caught Derek's face draining of color. "We invited her." Constance's voice rang out with theatrical pride. Lana was supposed to speak during the vows, but she hesitated. So here she is now. She gestured to Lana like a proud mother presenting a debutante. 2 minutes? That's all it took, years of relationship to unravel completely. Derek's stammered excuses competed with guests' shocked murmurs. The elegant jazz band had stopped playing, leaving only the sound of impending disaster. I watched my sister absorb each revelation, her spine straightening incrementally with each new betrayal. The champagne glass in her hand trembled slightly, not with fear, I realized, but with rage. The next moments unfolded in perfect clarity. Camille lifted her glass in a mockery of a toast, then deliberately poured the entire contents over Derek's custom tuxedo. Before he could react, she launched her bouquet directly at his face. White roses exploded on impact, petals drifting down like confused snow. "You bitch!" One of Derek's cousins, the one who'd bragged about his CrossFit championships during dinner, lunged toward Camille. His momentum carried him straight into the towering wedding cake. The confectionery masterpiece seemed to fall in slow motion, each tear separating as it descended. The crash when it hit the floor was oddly satisfying through my speakers. That was the spark that ignited the powder keg. The Holloways and their guests squared off against Camille's supporters. Someone threw a centerpiece. A chair toppled. Isabel planted herself firmly between Camille and the advancing CrossFit cousin, her small frame somehow intimidating. Through my screen, I watched my sister stand tall amid the chaos, champagne droplets glistening in her hair like stars. She looked nothing like the perfectly polished bride from hours earlier, and somehow more herself than she'd been in years. Then something extraordinary happened. Camille turned directly toward the livestream camera, her eyes finding the lens with uncanny accuracy. For a moment, despite 900 miles of distance, our gazes met. A lifetime of sister-speak passed between us in that silent second. I saw recognition in her eyes, not just of me watching, but of herself, finally seeing clearly. The screen froze on that image. My sister, standing defiant in her ruined wedding dress, Isabel protectively beside her, with Derek's family advancing and cake destruction in the background. Then the livestream crashed one final time, leaving me alone in my apartment with the echo of chaos still ringing in my ears. I sat in the sudden silence, surrounded by my makeshift celebration set up, the string lights, the half-empty champagne bottle, the fancy appetizers I'd barely touched. The framed photo of teenage Camille and me seemed to mock the evening's destruction, but the frozen image of my sister, champagne-soaked but standing tall, would stay with me long after the screen went dark. The perfect wedding had imploded, revealing the imperfect truth beneath. My phone lit up with a message from Isabel. "Taking her to my room. We'll call when safe. She's okay. Better than okay." I touched the dark screen where my sister's face had been moments before. 7 years of watching Camille twist herself into the Holloway family's ideal had ended in less than an hour of spectacular destruction. Somehow, through the distance of technology and miles, I'd been the perfect witness, unable to intervene, but present for every revealing moment. The rain started again outside my window, a steady Portland rhythm that had become my comfort sound. I closed my laptop gently, knowing the next chapter would begin soon enough. For now, the silence felt right, a pause between the life my sister had thought she wanted and the one waiting to begin. 6 days after the wedding disaster, I stood at Portland International Airport, scanning faces in the arrival stream. The morning rain had cleared, leaving behind that particular northwest freshness that always reminded me of new beginnings. When Camille appeared through the security doors, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the polished attorney who'd dominated family gatherings. Instead, my sister wheeled her carry-on with slumped shoulders, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater that could have come from my own closet. Her hair fell in natural waves instead of her signature sleek blowout. We locked eyes across the terminal. Neither of us moved for a moment, letting the crowd flow around us like water around stones. Then Camille's face crumpled, and we were both moving, meeting in the middle of the terminal. The sound of her suitcase wheels clicking to a stop on the tile floor echoed in my ears, the sound of her choosing to start over. We held each other without words, ignoring curious glances from passing travelers. Her designer perfume had faded, replaced by the artificial scent of airplane cabin and yesterday's shampoo. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered against my shoulder. "You're exactly where you need to be," I said, squeezing her tighter. The drive home was quiet, punctuated only by the swish of wipers clearing mist from the windshield. Camille stared out the passenger window, watching Portland's gray-green landscape blur past. I caught glimpses of her reflection eyes, red-rimmed but dry, jaw set in a way that reminded me of our mother. When we reached my apartment, Camille paused in the entryway, taking in the space she'd only seen through FaceTime calls. Her gaze landed on my livestream setup, still arranged in the corner, the laptop, the string lights, the champagne flute I hadn't yet put away. Then she spotted the framed photo. Moving slowly, as if drawn by an invisible thread, she crossed to where our teenage selves smiled from behind glass. She lifted the frame from its spot by the laptop, studied it for a long moment, then carried it to the coffee table. "I'm glad you saw it all," she said, placing the photo in the center. "Everyone else is trying to rewrite what happened." "What are they saying?" "Mom's telling people I had cold feet. Dad's calling it a mutual decision." She sank onto my couch, pulling her knees to her chest. Constance Holloway is spinning some story about protecting her son from an unsuitable match. I sat beside her, close enough to touch, but not touching. "And what's the truth?" "The truth?" Camille laughed, a hollow sound. "The truth is I ignored so many signs. The late nights at the office, the business trips that never quite added up. The way he changed the subject whenever I mentioned having kids." She pressed her palms against her eyes. It felt easier to pretend everything was fine. "Sometimes you need distance to see things clearly." She lowered her hands, studying me. "Is that why you moved to Portland?" "Part of it." I gestured to my gallery wall, filled with black and white portraits and cityscapes. "Here, I could be myself without constantly measuring up to family expectations." "I want that," Camille said quietly. "I've been looking at job listings. There's a nonprofit law firm here that needs someone with corporate experience. They work with small businesses and artists. You'd be amazing at that." "I have an interview in 30 days. She twisted her wedding ring, then deliberately pulled it off. "Will you help me find a divorce attorney?" "Of course." I took her hand, feeling the indent where the ring had been. "We'll figure it out together." Later that evening, as rain returned to tap against my windows, Camille explored my apartment with the curiosity of someone seeing their childhood home through adult eyes. She paused at my desk, picking up my course catalog from the community college where I taught photography. "You know what's funny?" She flipped through the pages. "I used to love photography. Remember when Dad got me that Polaroid for my 13th birthday? You took it everywhere that summer." Then high school started, and suddenly it was all about practical choices. Law school prerequisites, resume builders. She set down the catalog. I gave up so many things I loved to seem more practical. I watched her finger trace the course descriptions. "The next beginner's workshop starts in 2 weeks." "Really?" Hope flickered across her face. "Would it be weird, having your sister in class?" "Not as weird as watching her wedding implode from 900 miles away." She laughed a real laugh this time, and the sound filled my apartment like sunshine after storm clouds. "God, I can't believe Mom uninvited you over a dress size. As if that mattered in the end." Being excluded was actually the greatest gift they could have given me. I joined her at the desk. It gave me perspective no one else had. I could see everything clearly, without the chaos up close. "Is that why you set up the camera?" She nodded toward my tripod. "To document your viewing experience?" I thought it might help process everything. Instead, it captured something more important the moment my sister chose herself over appearances. Camille picked up the course catalog again, decisiveness replacing uncertainty in her posture. "Sign me up for that workshop. It's time I chose myself too." As we sat together that night, rain painting patterns on my windows, I thought about perspective, how distance could sharpen focus instead of blurring it. The frozen frame of my sister in tears wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of the one she chose for herself. The framed photo caught the soft glow of my string lights, teenage sisters forever caught in a moment of genuine connection. But now, watching Camille curl up on my couch with one of my photography books, I realized something profound. Sometimes the family you rebuild is stronger than the one that broke apart. My phone buzzed with another concerned message from our mother, but I let it go to voicemail. Instead, I joined my sister on the couch, and together we began planning her new chapterone where authenticity mattered more than appearances, and where broken things could be beautiful in their repair. 30 days, Camille murmured, already making notes for her interview. 30 days to help rebuild what was broken long before that wedding day. I smiled, remembering all the times we'd hidden under blankets as girls, sharing secrets and dreams. "We've got this," I said, and for the first time in years, those words felt completely true. Later, after Camille had fallen asleep on my couch, I set up my camera one last time. The final frame captured my sister at peace, the framed photo of our younger selves watching over her like a promise kept. Sometimes the wedding you don't attend is the one that brings you closest to the truth. And sometimes, in the quiet aftermath of chaos, you find the family you were meant to have all along.